I grew up just outside of Chicago, Illinois, probably about an hour west of the city. Had a pretty normal upbringing. Um, Parents got divorced when I was 6. When I was about 13, I found out that the people I'd been calling mom and dad were really grandma and grandpa. People I'd been calling my uncles were really my brothers, and the chick I'd been calling my sister was really my mom. So it kind of a very Jerry Springer esque twist to my childhood, and I didn't think it really had anything bad to do with how I turned out, but it gave me some issues. Yep, that was when I met my real dad, and that was the first thing we did together was some cocaine and a couple shots of whiskey, and that started me down a bad road. And I guess I've probably always been predisposed to being an alcoholic, so one thing led to another, and that led to about a 20, 22, 23 year battle with addiction to various things. It was basically it was a result of my drinking and my issues and everything else. I married probably the most wonderful woman in the world. She gave me 2 children, and that still wasn't enough. My insecurities caught up with me. My addictions caught up with me. She booted me out, as she should have, and I was basically left to fend for myself, and didn't do too well. And when it came down to being homeless or trying to get some quick money and drink myself to death, I chose option B, and didn't work out too well. Well, it was basically, if you've ever seen the movie Leaving Las Vegas, I was kind of trying to do the same thing. It was a long, drawn out suicide attempt type thing. I needed some money to go hole up and drink and drug myself to death. And I almost succeeded, but as it turns out, luckily I didn't. I went in, didn't have a gun, didn't really have much of a plan. I wrote a note. Um, I think it said something like, "Give me all the money, don't hit the alarms, no die packs. I'm really sorry about this. Thank you," or something like that. It was very polite as far as robberies go. And they gave me the money. She tried to give me more money. I stopped her. Um, and then I left, and I got in a cab, and I took off and went to the next town over. And we pulled into a gas station, and I was going to disappear into this little strip mall. And when we pulled into the gas station, a police car from the next town over pulled in right next to us and didn't pull in like he was coming for coffee. So I figured, all right, well, the game's up. It's been a nice couple-minute run, and paid the cab driver, got out, walked over to the squad car, knocked on the window, and he rolled it down. And I said, "Hey, are you looking for me?" And he looked at me kind of funny, and he's like, "No." And then there was a bar across the street, so I was kind of thinking quick, and I said, "Well, what's the food like at this bar over here?" He said it was pretty good, and I disappeared into the bar. And I guess about 5 minutes later, he got the radio call, and he came looking for me. And he's probably still a little bit pissed off about that to this day, that he had the bank robber at his window and didn't know it. Well, I managed to make it from Chicago to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Um, Checked into a motel up there, and started doing my whole drinking myself to death thing. The girl at the front counter of the hotel um, saw me and knew something was wrong, and she had a second job as a bartender and invited me to go out with her. and I did. And we were walking home from the bar at like 3 in the morning, and this is February in Milwaukee, so nobody's on the street but us. There's snow on the ground, and she had been drinking at work, so she was drunk. So the cops pulled up to make sure she was all right, and then they ran my ID and found out that I had a fugitive from justice warrant because apparently somebody had identified me on the news, and it turned into a big fiasco. I was sentenced to 84 months in federal prison at a maximum security penitentiary. Um, in the United States federal system, there's no parole or anything, so you do 85% of your time. So I did, off that 84 months, I did about 6.5 years. Um, I was in Chicago at the holding center for about 2 years, and I did my time at a place called United States Penitentiary Canaan in Waymark, Pennsylvania, which was a real shithole. And I mean, prison's not supposed to be comfortable, but it was maximum security. And when you get to the point where seeing people stabbed or beat up doesn't affect you anymore, or even get your emotions up, something's
Yeah.
something's wrong. Okay, well, I left Chicago at 6 a.m. on a Monday. They put you on an airplane, the classic Con Air flight, and they fly you to Oklahoma City, and then they disperse you wherever you're going. Well, for whatever reason, I got fast tracked through the whole thing. So I left Chicago, ended up in Oklahoma, was there for like 8 hours, then flew into Brooklyn, was there for 9 hours, and then got put on a bus to Pennsylvania. So the first day was kind of a blur. I arrived at probably about 11, 12 o'clock, got on the compound 1 o'clock. It was locked down because they had stabbed the assistant warden in the chow hall. So they were just coming off lockdown. So it was kind of, it was, the first day was really nothing. We came off lockdown the second day, and my very first trip to the yard, I think I was out there 5 minutes, and somebody stabbed somebody else, and they threw a bunch of flashbangs from the guard tower, and it was excitement, but not in a good way. So I mean, my first couple of days was interesting, but then after that, it settled down. I mean, it's 99% boredom and 1% sheer terror when shit actually happens. That was my introduction to like active violence. I had seen death before, I had seen bad things, but like to actually see it happening right in front of you. Or the funny thing is, and I don't know what it's like in prison over there, but like where I was, you knew 2, 3 days, sometimes a week ahead of time before somebody was going to get hit or smashed. So it's kind of weird, especially with me. I would be interacting with these people knowing that one of these days this week I'm going to see something bad happen to you, and 9 times out of 10 it did. And it's weird when that empathy goes away. I went from, hey, that guy's getting the shit stabbed out of him, I hope he's okay, to, man, they just stabbed somebody and that's going to fuck up my lunch. And that kind of makes me sick to my stomach. One time, one time, and it was when you get there, especially if you're, even though I didn't really click up with like any particular white group, I was still a white guy. So you get there, and since it's maximum security, they tell you, you got to put in work. So when you get to prison, they check your paperwork, make sure you're not a snitch, make sure you're not a child molester. If you're not either of those two things, you're probably going to be all right, as long as you're not running up drug debts or anything else. But there was one instance where in our housing unit, they put a child molester in there. I was the new guy, so me along with somebody else, it was either we handle him or we get dealt with. And I try not to judge people, but there's a couple crimes where I can't help it, and that's one of them. So I didn't really have a big problem with it. Yep, it's very segregated, I guess is the word, and it's ridiculous. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. You know I'm not racist. I'm not that guy. No, I mean, they were there and I coexisted with them, but I also coexisted with everybody else. I had kind of a unique thing where when I got there, I taught GED. No experience, nothing else. I just nobody else wanted to do it, so I did it, and it turns out I was very good at it. Um, so I kind of through that and just through my personality, I put myself in a position where I was allowed to deal with everybody. I mean, there's still the stupid rules, where you know if if a black guy made food, I couldn't eat it. Just stupid stuff like that. But as far as like dealing with everybody, I managed to navigate that pretty well. Yeah, like I said earlier, it became, hey, this guy's just got stabbed or this guy just got beat up or jumped on. I hope he's okay. It went from that to, how's this going to fuck up my lunch? Or, do I have enough batteries for my radio to make it through a lockdown? Or, they did this on a holiday. Now we're going to miss our holiday meal. Just stupid stuff. A perfect example. A couple days before I left, I was getting my tattoo work finished up, and we were in the tattoo artist cell, and he was doing some work on my arms, and all of a sudden we heard a commotion, and a guy that I was kind of friendly with, but who had been doing some shady shit, they finally decided they were sick of it, and we look out the window and he's getting bounced off every piece of furniture in the day room, and bleeding like a stuck pig. And this is a guy I just had breakfast with, and the first thing that went through my mind was not, "Hey, I hope he's okay." The first thing that went through my mind is, "Well, how the fuck am I going to get my tattoos done now?" And it's stuff like that, because that's not me, and that's not how I want me to be. You know what I mean? Uh, not talking to my children. Um, when I got locked up this last time, my wife divorced me, and we did not talk the entire time. We tried a couple times, but she had a lot of anger that was deserved, towards me, and it just never worked out. So it was probably that. It was probably 6.5 years of basically having to do everything completely alone. That's what was the roughest for me. Uh, don't run up any drug debts, don't gamble. Nobody there's your friend, and you know, mind your own business and do your own time, and you'll probably be all right. Some of that goes on. We, as a collective group, tried to take care of the people that were doing that because, and it's not just a white thing or a black thing or anything else. It's more of a thing of, you know, you should take care of the weaker people. So if somebody comes in and they're completely clueless, you don't take advantage of them. You don't take their money. Oh, it's still difficult every day. Um, I'm not the same around crowds of people. You know, um, it was just Independence Day over here, and we went to a fireworks display, and people bumping into me without saying excuse me, stuff that on the outside isn't really a big deal, but I mean, on the inside, if somebody bumps into you and doesn't say excuse me, there's a reason behind that, and something bad's probably going to happen. So it's just it's difficult. Finding work was difficult. Um, I took a teacher's aide apprenticeship while I was in the joint, and the best job I could find while I'm out here is washing dishes at an Italian restaurant. But it pays the bills, and it's something, and I'm not too proud to do whatever it takes to take care of my family. But I mean, every day is something different because you get so desensitized in there, and you get so just callous, and you get so on guard about stupid shit. Silence still kills me because in the joint, if it got quiet, something was getting ready to happen. So I have to fall asleep with the TV or radio on. If I'm in a crowded place and it all of a sudden gets silent for some reason, it freaks me out. So there's some lasting things there that are going to take a little bit to get rid of. Um, yeah, one word, disbelief. I just got the a picture of the cover back from the publisher of the collection that I made it into with some of the authors that are in there, and I still don't know how I made it in there. I got another acceptance letter today for some poetry I wrote in prison that's just now getting published. Um, the blog's being received really well, and I never I never thought I could take what was in my head and put it on paper and people would actually want to read it, but they do, and that's good because I didn't start writing to get published, didn't start writing to get paid. I started writing because you know I had a lot of stuff going on in my head that I didn't want in my head anymore, so I put it on the paper. And seems like a lot of people they can either identify with it, or it's the classic, everybody slows down to look at a car crash type of thing, because I certainly don't write happy stuff. But you know, it's good. It's good for me, and it's a kind of validation too. And hopefully someday it'll help pay some of the bills. Conquered, no. Put at bay, yes. They're always going to be there. Um, I'm always going to be an alcoholic. I'm always going to be an addict. I'm always going to have problems with my coping skills. It's just a matter of, can I catch it before it gets out of hand? So, I mean, I would love to say I conquered them, but maybe conquered's not the right word, but understand is the right word. I had a lot of time in there to confront them and actually understand where a lot of them come from. And it's not going to make things perfect, but maybe it's going to actually let me succeed. Well, I would like to remarry my ex-wife. I would like to be the husband and father that I was supposed to be. I'd like to do something a little more substantial than washing dishes. I'd like to make something out of my writing. And long term, I just enrolled in school, um, and I would like to become an addictions counselor to maybe help people who are starting to travel the road that I spent a lot of years on, to not go through what I had to go through.